Hello, everyone. In this session, I will discuss chapter number 2, that is demand and supply and introduction. So, let me first show you the learning objectives of this chapter. So, in this chapter, as you can see on your screen, I will discuss the concepts of demand, supply, and the market. We'll also discuss the concept of equilibrium, both equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Then I demonstrate the effects of a change in demand and similarly the effects of a change in supply. We basically discuss why demand and supply determine price and quantity traded and not the reverse. So we'll discuss this concept as well. That is your demand, quantity demand and quantity supply, both individually or separately, depends on the price of that product, but together will determine the price of the product. And we will discuss this, so don't worry about it. Oh, I'm sorry. So these are the learning objectives I'm going to cover in this session. One thing you must remember that these recorded sessions are, of course required. So you should watch these sessions, but it will not guarantee that you cover the whole chapter. It is not possible for me to cover each and everything in this chapter. So you have to complement these recorded sessions with the complete PowerPoint slides on your course website, chapter number 2 from your textbook, or go to the Connect website and read Learn Smart module for chapter number 2, and then also solve the problems. In other way, these recorded sessions are not exhaustive in nature. So you have to read your textbook as well. It is possible, indeed possible, that some of the topics I might not cover in these recorded sessions that you are supposed to cover from the textbook. And of course, if you have any questions on those topics, don't hesitate to contact me. Okay. So let's start with, let me first give you the whole, agenda of this session. So I'll first start demand. I will explain what do we mean by demand, what is demand schedule, what is demand curve. Similarly, what are the factors that determine demand, and how quantity demand depends on the price level. We will also discuss law of demand, and then similarly we do the same discussion for supply, and then we combine these demand and supply together to discuss equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity, and how these equilibrium price and quantities will change when there's a change in demand or supply. In this chapter, we are now going to discuss the impact of a simultaneous change in demand and supply. So either we'll be changing only demand or supply to see its impact on equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. So let's start with demand. So this is the definition that is on your screen: the quantities that consumers are willing and able to buy or purchase per period of time at various prices. So Period of time is also important, right? Per week, per month, per year, whatever, and at various uh, prices. Okay, so this is very important. That is willing and able. So, for example, if I tell you that my demand is to buy a BMW car, but I don't have enough funds to purchase that car, that would not be my demand. That would probably be my wish. So, this is the difference between demand and wish, your wish. So, demand means you are not only willing but also able to purchase that product at that is specific or at various prices. See, price is the most important determinant. So actually, your demand will depend on price of that product. Demand for for that product will depend on the on its price level. So price, there are other determinants as well, but price is the most important determinant of your demand. So now these are the important points that I've already discussed, but let's discuss them again. You must be willing to purchase it, and which is in the capital letters, must have ability to pay for it. So if you are unable to afford that product, then you are not demanding that product basically. Measures quantities in a specific time period. So time period is also important. That is a week, month, or year. Year shows relationship between quantity and prices only. So when I'm defining demand, I am just defining in terms of prices, right? So I'm just showing the relationship between quantity of that specific product and its price level. So price is the most important determinant. Okay. Now we discuss law of demand, which is not mentioned in this slide, but you have to go and read your textbook, chapter number 2. And that is the reason at the outset I said that you have to complement this recorded session with all those other resources that I've provided you. So what is law of demand? Law of demand simply shows or tells you a negative or inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded for a specific product. Let me write in very short form law of demand. That is, if price of X increases, I don't know, this problem with my pen. So if price of X, product X, any product, right? It could be table, it could be salt, it could be potatoes, it could be house, whatever. If price of X increases, then according to law of demand, quantity demand. So I write like this, QD, quantity demand, not demand, quantity demand. And I will tell you why I'm emphasizing this specific term, quantity demand, not demand. So quantity demand for the same product, X, will decrease. This is law of demand. But I have intentionally written here this law of demand, which is incomplete. Technically, it is incomplete. Why? If I put a comma here and write CP, which I'm going to tell you what do we mean by, or what do I mean by CP. So let me explain law of demand again. Law of demand simply tells you that there exists an inverse or indirect relationship between price and quantity demanded for a specific product. And then CP, that is ceteris paribus. What is ceteris paribus? Which I have written here. So you can see this is ceteris paribus. By ceteris paribus, this is the assumption And this assumption simply tells you that all else remains the same. Then this law holds. So for example, if I'm telling you that if the price of laptop increases, my quantity demand for laptop will decrease, all else remains the same. Then this law holds. Let me just violate this assumption by giving you an example and see law of demand will not hold. So suppose a price of laptops or price of a specific laptop increases and my quantity demand for that specific laptop increases instead of decreases. Why? Despite the fact that price of this product is increasing, I am demanding more because I have violated this assumption of ceteris paribus. Actually, why I'm demanding more? Simply because my income has also gone up with the increase in price. So price of laptop increases by 10%, my income increases by 30%. So now I can easily afford more or an additional laptop or more advanced laptop because my income has gone up despite price is increasing. Are you getting my point? So this inverse relationship holds only if all else remains the same. So there's no change in your income, there's no change in your preferences, there's no change in the family structure, there's nothing, everything held constant. Then if price of any product increases, yes, quantity demand for that product will decrease. That is why we write always comma cetera paribus with the assumption of cetera paribus. That is, all else remains the same. So this is law of demand. Then we have two more definitions, and technically these are not different than what we just discussed. You have several different ways to demonstrate or to explain law of demand. Here, if you notice, I explain law of demand by using these symbols, right? That is, if price of X, or in plain language. So I explain law of demand in plain language that if price of a product increases, quantity demand for that product will decrease, cetera paribus. This is one way to explain law of demand. That is basically it's in a written form. Okay. I can also explain law of demand using a table. This is what we call demand schedule or demand schedule. What is demand schedule? A table showing the various quantities demanded per period of time at different prices. So I am actually explaining the law of demand using a demand table instead of writing. Let me show you the example of table and then I'll come back. So this is demand schedule or schedule. So what this table is showing, law of demand. I am assuming, the assumption is already there. That is cetera paribus, although it's not mentioned here. So you can see. So this is the cases of beer. So price per case. Now notice if price increases from 17 to 18, notice quantity demand decreases from 7 to 6. So I'm writing here, if price increases from 17 to 18, quantity demand for beer decreases from 7 cases to 6 cases only. So you can see as price increases, quantity demand decreases. The reverse is also true. If you move from 22 to 21 to 20 and 19 in this direction, that is when price decreases from 22 to 21 to 20 to 19 to 18 to 70, quantity demand increases from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. So again, the relationship between these two variables is inverse or indirect. So one is moving, they both are moving in opposite direction. This is the meaning of indirect relationship. Remember this because we are going to use these relationship quite often in the later chapters. By indirect relationship, I mean that the two variables are moving. Two variables means price and quantity demanded are moving in opposite direction. So if one is increasing, the other one must be decreasing. If the first one is decreasing, then the other one, that is the second variable, must increase. So they move in opposite uh, direction. Okay. Now, but one thing you must notice in this demand schedule, or when we explained, when I explained, the law of demand, you writing, if Px increases for QDX decreases. One thing you notice that this variable price and this variable quantity demand. This quantity demanded, this variable depends on price level. Remember this. So I'm writing like in this fashion. Quantity demand for X is equal to or is a function of price of X. That is, this price of X is independent variable. This is independent variable and QDX is dependent variable. So quantity demanded for this product X will depend on price of its price. Okay. The opposite is not true. So you can't say that if quantity demanded increases, price will decrease. Not necessary. But yes, if price decreases, quantity demanded increases. Are you getting my point? So price is an independent variable. It does not depend on quantity demand. But quantity demand depends on price. Okay. So your demand depends on the price. So you see the prices. If prices are increasing, you are going to demand less. If prices are decreasing, you are going to demand more. But you can't go to Costco and say, since I am demanding more and therefore you charge me lower prices. That is not going to be the case. Okay. Now, another way to demonstrate the same law of demand, and notice that I'm not discussing the assumption of ceteris paribus. It is implicitly there, right? So we normally don't write every time, but when I ask you what is law of demand, you have to mention that assumption as well. Okay. So this is another way to show law of demand. That is demand curve. So if you plot these two variables on a two-dimensional diagram, taking price on the vertical axis and quantity demanded, although I said quantity demanded, but you can see in the diagram it says only quantity. So quantity demanded on the horizontal axis and plot. So I plotted three different points, A, B, and C. So now you can see again law of demand. That is, if you move from point A to point B, what is happening? So if you move from point A to point B, at point A, price is 17 and quantity demanded or quantity demand is 7 unit. When you move from point A to point B, notice price increases to 18 and notice quantity demanded decreases from 7 to 6. Again, law of demand. This is law of demand, that as price increases, quantity demand decreases for this product, which is not mentioned here, which is not given here actually. So this is once again law of demand. But notice one thing, that I showed law of demand that as price increases, quantity demand decreases for this product. This is shown in this demand curve as a movement along the demand curve. So I am moving on the same demand curve. This is one demand curve, one downward sloping line. Why I'm saying downward sloping line? Because of this negative or indirect relationship. So we have a downward sloping demand curve, and we are showing this law of demand by moving on the same demand curve. So I haven't shifted this demand curve somewhere here or here. I'm just moving on the same demand curve. Okay, so remember this, that it's a movement along the same demand curve or line, same thing. But I will continue to use demand curve instead of demand line. I know that this is a linear or straight line, but I will call it demand curve. Okay. So now let me quickly summarize what we have done. So I just discussed demand, and then I talked about law of demand, and I showed you that law of demand can be expressed in three different ways. One is simply verbally, that if price of X increases, quantity demand for X decreases, etc. paribus. The other way to define law of demand is using table. This is what we call demand schedule or schedule. Another way to explain law of demand using graphical representation. So we just demonstrated law of demand by plotting price of that product on the vertical axis and quantity demand on the horizontal axis, and then we draw a demand curve, which is a downward line. That also shows law of demand. That is an inverse or indirect relationship between price and quantity demanded. Okay, this is what we have done, and the law of demand is depicted as a movement along the demand curve, along the same line. There's no shift in the demand curve. Okay, and notice since the beginning of this session, I kept using this term quantity demanded. So I'm saying when price increases, quantity demanded for that product changes, not demand, which we'll discuss later on why I'm using this specific term quantity demanded. Okay, now let's move to explain this law of demand basically. Now, I want to explain why when price of a product increases, quantity demanded for that product decreases, with that assumption that is ceteris paribus, keeping all other things constant. Why this is so? So there's a very common error that students actually do. When I ask them why demand curve, which is written here, why demand curve slopes downward, and normally we answer this question by saying that because price and quantity demanded are indirectly related. So the answer of this question, which I'm writing here, I know it is incorrect. So when I ask why demand curve slopes downward, so my question is basically this: if I have drawn a demand curve taking quantity demand for product X here and price of X here, and if I ask you why this demand curve slopes downward, and your answer would be that this is because if price of X increases, quantity demand for X decreases. This is not the answer. Actually, you rephrase my question. This is my question. Why, if price of X decreases or increases, quantity demand decreases? And then you say the answer of this why when price of X increases, quantity demand for X decreases, and then you answer this is because the demand curve is downward sloping. No, actually demand curve is downward sloping is the same thing as if I say if price of X increases, quantity demand for X decreases. I'm asking you why law of demand holds. Why, if price of X increases, quantity demand for that product decreases? Why demand curve slopes downward? These are two questions, same questions, and the answers are these. So let me first erase these annotations and then I'll discuss. So these are the two reasons. Number one is called income effect, and number two is substitution effect. So let's first discuss income effect. So if price increases, right? If P increases, and remember in the later slides, I will only write INC, that is increases. Okay. So rather than writing increases. So if price increases, quantity demand for any specific product decreases. I know this. This is law of demand. And if you plot price and quantity demanded in a two-dimensional diagram, yes, you will get a downward sloping demand curve. The question is why this is happening. What is the reason behind it? The reason is what we call income effect. That is when or if price increases, what happens actually? Your real income decreases. Your real income decreases. What is real income? So suppose if you're working and if you're earning $40,000 a year, okay, that is your nominal income. That is the income that you receive in Canadian dollars. Real income means the purchasing power of your income, that is of that $40,000. So if prices are increasing, in other words, if you have inflation in the country, so if prices are increasing, the purchasing power of your income will decrease, although you are still getting the same $40,000. So basically, by real income, I mean real income is basically represented in terms of commodities, in terms of goods and services instead of dollars. Let me give you a simple example. Suppose if your income, and this is a big supposition, but just to explain you this concept, suppose your income is $100 only, just $100 in 1 month, suppose. And a price of a sofa in Lyons is also $100. So your nominal income is $100, but your real income is one sofa that you can buy in Lyons, from Lyons. So basically, I've converted your income into specific product, sofa. So your real income is one sofa. So the value of your income is that you can easily buy that sofa. Okay. Now, if the price of that sofa increases from 100 to 150, can you buy that sofa with your $100 income? No. So actually, your nominal income is still same, $100, but your real income, that is your purchasing power, has gone down. The same $100 cannot buy that sofa anymore, and therefore you can't buy. Why you cannot buy? Because when price increases, you can't buy that sofa because your real income, that is purchasing power of your income, has gone down. Okay. So that is why quantity demand for this product decreases. Why? Because your real income has gone down. That is one reason. The second reason is what we call substitution effect. What is substitution effect? So if price of X increases, and I know according to law of demand, quantity demand for this product must decrease. I know why the quantity QDX is decreasing, because you are substituting for other products. So for example, If your income is, let's say, $100, same $100, okay, and the price of one sofa is $90, you can easily buy from your $100. Suppose price of the sofa increases from $90 to $100. According to law of demand, you must decrease your, you must not buy, right? You decrease your demand, quantity demand for that sofa. But your income, that is $100, or real income, hasn't changed, hasn't decreased, because you can still buy that sofa for $100 because your nominal income is $100. So you can still buy that sofa, but you are not buying. Why? So it's not because of real income, because your real income will still allow you to buy that sofa, but still you are not buying that sofa. The other reason may have been the substitution effect. So you go to the Leon's, you have $100 in your wallet, and you see this price of sofa has gone up from $90 to $100, but still you are not buying. Why? Because you might, see the other substitutes available. For example, a chair. So if you see that the price of chair hasn't gone up, why don't you go for chair? Because now chair becomes relatively cheaper than the sofa, and therefore you substitute for another product, that is chair. If you consider chair as a substitute for sofa, so you buy chair, and therefore you're not going to buy sofa. Why to buy sofa if you have already bought chair that is a substitute for sofa? So you're getting my point. So if price of X increases, then demand for Y will also increase. Y in this case, in our example, is chair. So people would buy more chairs, and therefore they're now going to demand more sofas. And that is the reason quantity demand for sofa will decrease, because you're substituting for other products. Yes, if there is no substitute available, then law of demand doesn't hold, because whatever be the price, you have to buy. For example, any life-saving drugs. So if the price of a life-saving drug increases, what do you think law of demand holds? That you are going to demand less? No, you need it, and therefore, because there's no other substitute, so you have to buy. Then law of demand doesn't hold, or demand curve will not be a downward sloping line. Demand curve would be like this. See, this is demand curve now. This is quantity, this is price. So if price increases, this is demand curve now. This is quantity, this is price. So if price increases from here to here to here, you're still demanding the same quantity. Why? Because this is, let's say, life-saving injection. You have to have it in order to, survive. And therefore, your demand is the same for this injection. Doesn't matter whatever be the price. So see, this is not downward sloping. Why? Because there are no substitutes for this drug. So if this is the case, then yes, law of demand doesn't hold. But if substitutes are available, then yes, law of demand holds. Okay. So, but we are assuming that substitutes are available. Okay. So we'll discuss these special shapes of demand curve as well later on. Why later on? Why not I draw here? So suppose, so this vertical demand curve is one shape. The other shape is perfectly horizontal. The other shape is like this, which we call convex, everything. So all these shapes we are going to discuss in chapter number 4. So you don't need to worry about these vertical shape, these horizontal shape, and this convex shape. Don't worry about these demand curves. Right? What you need to know is why the demand curve slopes downward. And these are the two reasons. One is income effect because of the changes in real income, and the other one is because of the availability of substitutes or substitute products. Okay. Then we have market demand. So far we talked about individual demand, although I did not mention. So if you combine all individuals' demand, we get market demand. That is the demand for sofa in Calgary. Demand for sofa not for only Naved, but for all consumers, all individuals in that specific area. So that is called market demand. So the total demand for a product or service by all consumers. So if you consider for the whole country, then this is for all Canadians. If you are specific to one city, that is for all Calgarians. And are you getting my point, right? So this is market demand. So market demand, how you are going to get market demand? Market demand is the horizontal summation. Horizontal summation of all individual demand. Why I did not write market demand is the summation of all individual demand. Why only horizontal summation? So you don't have to add prices, you have to add quantity demanded. Why not I show you using this demand schedule? So see, suppose there are three different individuals. I can't write 500 individuals on this slide. So suppose I have three individuals. Oops, sorry. 1, 2, and call 3. So these are three individuals. And this is their demand, quantity demand. So when price is 4, individual L will demand 1 unit. Bo will not demand anything. Coal will not demand anything at price 4. So what is the total demand? 1. What I've done, I've added the C number 1 plus 0 plus 0. So see, I'm adding quantity demanded. I'm not adding prices. At one price, I add all these quantity demand. And where we take quantity demand on the demand curve. So if I draw demand curve, here I take quantity demand. Here I take prices. So I have taken quantity demanded for this product on the horizontal axis. That is why I'm saying you have to add horizontally. So it's a horizontal summation. So if you have two demand curve like this and like this, if you have to add these two demand, don't add prices. So at one specific price, this is demand for individual 1, this is demand for individual 2. Just add these, just add this number and this number. So at price 4, you have the total number. This is what I'm doing. See, at price 3, demand is, quantity demand is 1, and then for this individual 1, for this individual 1. So total market quantity demand would be 3 units. At what price? At 3. So we are adding all quantity demanded horizontally, and we get market demand. So these are prices, these are all total demand, right? So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is market demand. Is casual, and we can also draw market demand curve. So that's all as far as demand is concerned. Now I'm not going to waste time in discussing this supply. Very same ideas, the quantities that producers instead of consumers. Now we are talking about producer side or production side. So the quantities that producers are willing and able, remember able, to produce per period of time at various prices. So I can write law of supply as law of demand. So law of supply, same thing, but the relationship is different. So if price of X increases, quantity supplied for the same product will also increase, ceteris paribus assumption. This is law of supply in a in a written statement, right? So verbally, this is law of supply. If price of X increases, producers are willing to supply more, keeping all other things held constant. That is supply, ceteris paribus. I can show this law of demand using a table. and using a diagram. So if I show you this law of supply using a table, this is called supply schedule. A table showing the various quantities supplied per period of time at different prices. Supply curve, a graphic representation of the supply schedule. So this is supply schedule. Notice that the relationship between these two variables is positive or direct instead of indirect, instead of inverse. It's a direct relationship between these two variables. Which one is independent variable? Price is independent variable. Which one is dependent variable? Quantity supplied. So quantity supplied depends on price level. Okay. And look at the relationship. Direct. Direct means these two variables are moving in the same direction. So if price is increasing, quantity supplied will also be increasing. You can see here. So if price increases from 18 to 19, 20, 21, 22, quantity supply also increases from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. The reverse is also true. If price decreases from 22 to 21 to 20 to 19 to 18, quantity supply will also decrease from 6 to 5 to 4 to 3 to 5. So there's a direct relationship. That is, when price increases, quantity supply of the same product will also increase, not decrease, increase. I can also show you law of demand, law of supply using graph. This is the supply curve. Notice this is upward sloping line. The upward sloping line means both variables are increasing or decreasing at the same time. So if you move from point A to point B, what you can see law of demand, why I kept saying law of demand, law of supply. See, when you move from point A, when you move from point A to point B in this direction, what is happening? Price is increasing from 18 to 19 from point A to point B, but quantity supplied also increases from 2 to 3 units. This is law of demand again, or law of supply again, I'm sorry. So if I ask you why the supply curve slopes upward instead of downward, don't say the supply curve is upward sloping because when price increases, quantity supplied also increases. This is not the answer. Basically, you are rephrasing my questions. So my question is, why when price increases, quantity supplied also increases? Don't say this is because supply curve is upward sloping. You actually rephrase my question. Why supply curve is upward sloping? So in order to answer this question, this is the answer. So why the supply curve slopes upward, or why when price of X increases, quantity supply also increases? Why? The reasons are given here. So there are two reasons. So I'm going to basically answer why supply curve slopes upward, or why if price increases, INC is not natural log of C, right? This is INC, increase, okay, increases, sorry. So if price increases, quantity supply also increases. What is the reason? There are two reasons. Number one, given here, more profits. If the price of a product is increasing, it means the producer is going to have or earn higher profits, keeping cost constant. So this, I'm assuming there's no change in cost of production. So you're still, your cost of production doesn't change at all. And if you are getting high prices, what does this mean? It means you are earning higher profits. And of course, this higher profit will give you incentive, you means producers, to produce more. And therefore, quantity supply will increase because of higher profits. And this is why farms or producers are producing, in order to reap higher profits. So if this is the motives, then yes, when price increases, producers are willing and able to supply more. That is increased quantity supplied for that product. The reason is higher profits. The other, and with the first reason, I'm assuming that there's no change in cost of production. The second reason is the supplier are going to supply more. That is, they are going to supply, for example, if they are planning to increase the quantity supply, when you supply more, sometimes it costs you more. So sometimes the cost increases. How can you compensate this cost? You're not going to reduce your profits. So in order to compensate or cover these costs, you have to charge higher prices. So you will supply more only when price increases. Why? So that you can cover your additional cost. So these are the two reasons. Either you have, so basically the second reason is, okay, hold on, sorry. So just give me a sec. Give me a second. I can't see my screen. I don't know what happened. Hold on. Yeah. So basically, first reason is because simply suppliers are motivated by profit, and therefore, if price increases, their profit margin will increase, and therefore they supply more. Similarly, and of course, I've already said this, that higher price means more profits, right? Similarly, cost or cost of production rise as more is produced. So higher prices are required to supply more. And that is why producers are going to supply more. Sorry, not, sorry. Higher prices are required to supply more. So if producers are supplying more, they will supply more only when price is increasing. Why? So that they can cover their additional cost. So these are the two reasons why low demand supply, holds. Same concept as market demand curve. Now we have market supply curve. So just it is a horizontal summation of each individual producer's supply curve. But how can you add all supply curve? You must have these two assumptions. Number one, producers are all making a similar product. So they are producing identical products. Otherwise, you can't add. You can't add Toyota SUV and Toyota sedan. They are not addable. These are two different products. So I'm talking about same product. Consumers have no preference as to which supplier or product they use. Okay. So if two producers are producing 100% similar product, that is identical product, then consumer does not have any specific preferences, right? So they don't have any preference that, okay, although the product is same, but I'm going to buy from this producer. Then you can't add supply curve. So I'm assuming that these producers are producing identical products and consumers have no specific preferences, right? That they buy from which supplier. With these two assumptions, if you just add all those individual supply curves, you will get market supply curve. These diagrams are shown in the actual PowerPoint slide that I've already uploaded on your course website provided by the publisher. So you have to go through those slides or just read chapter number 2 from your textbook, because it's not possible to show you everything in this session. So I've just added all supply, both two individual supply. So Bobby and other brewers, I just added 2 plus 6, 8, 3 plus 9, 12, 4 plus 12, 16. So I just added all quantity supplied, okay, at each price level. So this is market supply curve. But market supply curve is not shown here. This is market supply schedule. This is not market supply curve. Market supply curve must be a diagram, which is not given here, okay. Now we come to market. What is market? Market is a place. It may be a physical place or virtual place where buyers and sellers interact and buy and sell goods or services. So it may be a market for potatoes, it may be a market for furniture, market for automobiles, uh, financial markets, bond markets, stock markets, where in stock markets, buyers and sellers they buy and sell stocks. Potato markets or farmer markets where you buy and sell agricultural produce. Okay, foreign exchange market, in that market you buy and sell foreign currencies. So there are different types of market. Here we are considering only product market. So I'm writing here. I'm sorry. So I am only going to discuss in this course product market. Any type of product, right? Consumer products. Okay, not financial markets, not foreign exchange markets. Okay, or not even factors of production market. We have labor market where we buy and sell workers. So we are not going to discuss labor market or capital market. Okay, we are going to discuss product market. That is those goods and services that we buy for our own consumption. Okay. So once we discuss demand, supply, and market, then this is the time to combine these two concepts. And this is what we call equilibrium or market equilibrium. What is the meaning of equilibrium? Which is given here. Equilibrium is a point, is a situation where quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. We have already discussed quantity demanded. I know that quantity demanded and price are inversely related. I know quantity supplied and price are directly related. And when we combine these together, we want to find a price where both are equal. And that price and that quantity is called equilibrium quantity and equilibrium price. Okay. So now, from now on, instead of writing quantity demanded every time, instead of writing quantity supplied every time, we now use these notations that you must remember, QD and QS. So instead of writing quantity demanded, I just write QD. Instead of writing quantity supplied, I just write QS. So at equilibrium, QD must equal to QS. That is quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. What does this mean? It means that there's no shortage. By shortage, I mean quantity demand is demanded, that is QD, is more than or higher than QS. So this is the shortage. When QD is greater than QS, or in other words, QS is less than QD, same thing. So when supply is less than demand, but I don't use supply and demand. I'm just saying quantity supply is less than quantity demanded. And by surplus, I mean when quantity supplied is greater than here, quantity demand. Or quantity demand is less than, quantity demanded is less than quantity supplied. So this is a case of surplus. You know, it has nothing to do with the, this is, you have already, experienced this as well, that whenever there's a shortage in the market for any product, whenever there's a shortage, price will increase. And whenever there's a surplus, price will decrease. Remember in 2019, COVID-19, the price of hand sanitizers has gone up slightly. Why? Because there was a shortage. People were thinking that they would not be able to buy these hand sanitizers and masks and other tissue papers. And because of this shortage, people started bidding higher prices. And producers start charging higher prices, not instantaneously, but with the passage of time. And then government controls, right? So then government controlled actually that you cannot buy more than this number of tissues or these hand sanitizers or masks, right? So let's discuss further this surplus and shortage. But before going to discuss surplus and shortage, we are going to show you this equilibrium using this diagram. So now what I've done, first I discussed equilibrium using this diagram. So now what I've done, first I discussed demand curve alone, supply curve alone, and then I combine these two curves in one diagram, demand curve and supply curve. And using these two these two curves, that is demand curve and supply curve. So uh, I find this point. This point. What is this point? This is the equilibrium point. Why equilibrium? Because at this point, quantity demanded equals quantity supplied, which is 16. And what is the price? $20. So I know that this 16, I can write here, this 16 is QD. That is when price is $20, total quantity demanded in this market is 16 units for this product. Quantity supply is also 16. I know they both are equal. So when they both are equal, why to distinguish quantity demanded and quantity supplied every time? Why not we just call this 16 as equilibrium quantity rather than saying equilibrium quantity demanded, equilibrium quantity supplied, because I know they both are equal. So there's no point making this distinction that whether this is quantity demanded or quantity supplied. So why not we just call equilibrium quantity? That's all. So 16 is equilibrium quantity. In short, we can write like this, EQ, equilibrium quantity. And price is equilibrium price. So 20 is equilibrium price, 16 is equilibrium quantity. Okay? And how we actually get this 16? By finding the point of intersection between these two curves, supply curve and demand curve. Okay. Now let me go back to the slide that I skipped earlier. So this is how you calculate equilibrium without using graph. Okay. By using demand and supply is casual, or market supply is casual and market demand is casual. So you can see that at 20 price, quantity demanded, that is market, or sorry, quantity supplied, I'm sorry, 16, and quantity demanded overall market, right? So the whole market is also 16. So the difference between these two is 0. This is equilibrium. Why? Because they both are equal, 16 and 16. At price 18, at price 19, I know that quantity demanded is higher than quantity supplied. So we have shortage. Okay. So we have shortage of 14, we have shortage of 6. And above the equilibrium price, that is at 21 and 22, you can see quantity supplied is higher than quantity demanded. So we have surpluses. Surplus of 11, surplus of 18. What is the meaning of surplus? That is, producers are unable to sell these 11 units. Similarly, the producers are unable to sell these 18 units at price 20. They are willing to sell 24 units, but consumers overall are willing to buy only 6 units. So they won't be able to sell 18 units at 22 prices. Okay. So above the equilibrium price, you have surplus. Below the equilibrium price, you have shortage. I can show you using this simple diagram of demand and supply curve. See this? Excuse me. So this is demand curve and supply curve, and I've shown you shortage. At what price? Below equilibrium price. So see, at $18, we have shortage. How much? This is the shortage. So 22 minus 8 equal to what? So it is equal to 14. So equal to 14. You can check here. So at price 18, see the shortage is 14. Okay. So shortage is 14 at price 18. Now, can you tell me what would happen when there's a shortage in this market? When there's a shortage, that is, consumers are not willing to, or consumers are willing to purchase, sorry, these 22 units at $18 price, but supplier are willing to supply only 8. What would happen? Everyone wants to buy this product, these 8 units. Producers know that there are more customers for their limited production. They tend to charge you higher prices, and prices will move back to this equilibrium. I am now trying to explain one important concept. Remember, when we were discussing demand curve, I showed you and told you as well that quantity demanded depends on prices. So when price changes, quantity demand also changes, right? Not the reverse. First, price will change and then quantity demand will follow. So quantity demand will depend on price. Similarly, quantity supply will depend on price level. Here in this diagram, when I draw both diagrams at the same time in the same diagram, in the same curve, same space, sorry. So if I draw these two demand and supply together, then we have a new variable. What is that variable? Surplus or shortage, or no surplus, no shortage. This is one variable, new variable. So we have shortage in this area. In this whole area, we have shortage. Above this 20 price, we have all surplus. At this point, zero shortage, zero surplus. See, this variable, not demand and supply, shortage and surplus. This variable is independent variable now. Remember, I told you demand depends on price. Demand is dependent variable. Supply is also dependent variable. Dependent on what? On price level. But if you combine these two, demand and supply, the combination, that is the difference between demand and supply, either you have shortage or you surplus, or you have zero shortage or zero surplus. This variable, that is the difference between demand and supply, is not independent variable, is a dependent variable. Or is not a dependent variable, is an independent variable. And price depends on the difference of demand and supply. So actually, I received one message from one of the students asking me this same question, that demand depends on price, supply depends on price. Price is independent variable. Why you are saying that you are now calculating price because price is independent? No, price now depends on these two variables together at the same time. So the difference between quantity demand and quantity supply will actually determine this price level. Are you getting my point? So whenever there's a shortage, what happens? Price will increase. Whenever there's a surplus, what happens? Price will decrease. When producers are unable to sell, the quantity demand is less than quantity supplied. What they are going to do? They are going to lower their price in order to attract more customers. So now you can see this variable price is dependent variable now. And this dependent price is dependent variable, and this variable depends on what? This price depends not on demand, not on supply, but the difference of these two variables, that is shortage or surplus. So if there's a shortage, this price will increase. If there's a surplus, this price will decrease. So now let me go back here and show you one important thing. This is the demand curve. I know that I know that this is dependent variable. I know this is independent variable. Demand, quantity demanded depends on price. Price is independent. But normally we take independent variable on the horizontal axis and dependent variable on the vertical axis. But why we have taken dependent variable on the horizontal axis and independent variable on the vertical axis? Because I know that this is not my complete diagram. I'm going to superimpose supply curve as well in the same diagram. The moment I inserted this supply curve here, and I take supply here as well. So I take quantity supply and quantity demand both here on the horizontal axis. Then if I see the difference between these two variable, the difference become independent variable, and price will depend on the difference between demand and supply, that is shortage and surpluses. That is the reason why we have initially taken prices on the vertical axis, because when we combine these two curves, price variable which is on the vertical axis would become dependent variable, and depend on what? On shortages and surpluses. You know that whenever there's a shortage, price will increase. So actually price depend on the market conditions of shortage and surpluses. So that is the reason why we have taken initially price on the vertical axis, despite knowing the fact that price is independent variable if you consider only demand curve, and independent variable if you consider only supply curve, but becomes dependent variable when you consider both at the same time. Okay. So I have done this shortage, and now I don't have to explain this surplus. Whenever there's a surplus, price will tend to decrease and reach to the equilibrium price level, that is $20. We have already discussed market adjustment, right? That is, whenever there's a surplus, producers drop the price to sell excess stock. As price decreases, quantity demand increases and quantity supply decreases according to law of demand and law of supply. Market moves back to equilibrium price and quantity. Let me real quickly show you what they are saying here. Okay, since this is no drawing here. So see, if there's a, and the analysis for shortage would be the same. If there's a surplus, you can see this is surplus. What is happening? Producers are unable to sell their products. They are going to decrease their price. Notice, the moment price decreases, according to law of demand, quantity demand will increase. And I told you at that point that we will move along the same demand curve. There's no shifting of demand curve. So we are moving from this point to this point. See, we are moving in this direction. So as price decreases from 22 to 20, quantity demand increases from 6 to 16. And then as price decreases from 22 to 20, according to law of supply, quantity supply will also decrease. They move in the same direction. So supply, quantity supplied will also decrease from this point to this point. Quantity supplied will also decrease from this point to this point. Movement on the same supply curve, and they eventually reach to this point. The moment the price is reached at $20, there's no surplus, there's no shortage. And if there's no surplus, there's no shortage, there's no tendency. Producers are not going to change their price. There's no point changing prices. Why? Because there's no shortage or surplus. So the moment you reach to this point, price will stay here. And this is why we call it equilibrium price, $20. Okay. So I've done this. Now, what we are going to do in the next few slides, I will see what would happen if the demand curve shifts either to the right or to the left. So remember, let me go back. I'm sorry, I'm wasting your time, but that is important. Yeah, this is. Let me clear these annotations, these markings. Yeah. So this is demand curve. We have discussed this earlier, right? And in this demand curve, what I'm showing you that price is independent variable and quantity demanded is dependent variable. That is, quantity demanded depends on price. So price is actually determining your quantity demanded. That is, when price increases or decreases, you're going to change your quantity demanded, right? Accordingly, because of your decrease or increase in real income and because of the substitution effect. So price is one variable that determines this quantity demanded. Okay, this is one variable. But there's so many other variables as well. For example, yes, when price changes, you are going to change your demand. This time I said demand. Why? Because whenever you change your demand because of price, we call it quantity demand. So for example, if I tell you that, I am my quantity demand for uh, carpets changes, it means that I'm changing my demand for carpets because of changes in prices only. So whenever you change your demand, whenever you demand more or less simply because of changes in prices, that is called changes in quantity demand. So whenever we write this capital Q before D, it means that demand is changing because of the price level only, not because of any other factor. So if your demand is changing because of the price level, it means that you are moving on the same demand curve, either from this point to this point. So if you're moving from these points, from point A to point B to point C, if you're moving along the same demand curve, it means yes, you are changing your demand, increasing or decreasing because of the changes in the price level of that product only. But demand changes because of other factors as well. For example, if there's no change in price, if the price of sofa is still same $100, but I am now demanding more sofas. Why? Maybe my income has gone up. Maybe I have bought a new house and I need more sofas in my living room. And that is the reason I'm buying more sofas, not because of the price. So if you are demanding more or less, not because of this price, but because of other factors, that is called demand only, not quantity demand. So we don't use this Q word. We just say demand. So if I say my demand for sofa increases, it 100% means that I am demanding more sofas not because of the changes in price level, but because of any other factor. Okay. So now let me show you first here. Uh, Hold on. Let me go. It will take a few seconds, I believe, because I want to first share a blank whiteboard. Yeah. So now I'm going to show you here. See, suppose this is quantity demand for sofa S. Okay, let me write sofa. This is price of sofa. Okay, this is demand curve D. If I buy more sofas or I demand more sofas because of decrease in price level, I will move from point A to point B. So this increase in quantity demand for sofas because of the prices. That is why I call it increase in quantity demanded for sofas. Although I am demanding more sofas, not because of any factors, but price level. And that is why you can see I'm moving on the same demand curve from point A to point B. Now see this, what is happening here in this diagram. This is once again quantity demand for sofa here. This is price of sofas here. This is the demand curve. Now, I don't care about prices. whatever be the price level, I am demanding more sofas because my income has gone up. So if suppose if I'm right now at point A, then I will be here at point B. Why at point B? Because there's no change in price. Price is same. There's no change in price, but I'm demanding more. At this price, if price is this, I am demanding this. See? So at all price level, I'm demanding more. Why? Not because of the price, not because of the price, but because of the income. So the whole demand curve will shift like this, a rightward shift. So the whole demand curve shifts to the right. Why demand curve shifts to the right? Because of increase in income. So my income increases and I'm going to buy more sofas. Yes, my demand will increase. This time I'm not saying quantity demand, I'm saying demand. So if quantity demand increases, then you are moving on the same demand curve. If demand increases, the demand curve shifts to the right. Are you getting my point? So if quantity demand increases, you move from point A to point B in this direction. If demand increases, the demand curve, whole demand curve shifts to the right. If quantity demand decreases, then you move from point B to point A. This is a decrease. Same demand curve. But if demand curve decreases because of any factor other than price level, then whole demand curve, will shift to the left like this. Okay. So this is what we call shifting of demand curves. I'm shifting the demand curve to the right, to the left. So demand is increasing or decreasing not because of price, but because of any other factor. What are those factors? Let's discuss those factors. So there are 5 factors in this textbook. Let me, okay, just give me a second. Give me a second. Let me open that slide. It will take a few 10, 20 seconds, I believe. So I'm going to show you factors that will increase or decrease demand. Of course, those factors must not be, must not include price, because if price changes, that is called changes in quantity demanded, not demand. So I've done all this, then this, then this. Yeah, see, determinants of demand. By determinants of demand, I mean these are the factors that will change your demand as well. Either in a, either it will increase or decrease. First, consumer preferences. So if tastes change, demand will also change. People have, but you don't change your taste every single day or every week, right? So it seldom changes. Basically, it takes time. So preferences, of course, preferences do change, but over a longer period of time. Yes. So if you have different preferences, definitely you demand more for a certain product. Doesn't matter. Uh, Price of that product hasn't changed, but you are still demanding more or demanding less. For example, if I am 70 years old or 80 years old, right? What do you think? I'm going to demand heavy bikes? No. And therefore, there's no change in prices. But my demand for heavy bikes will decrease because my preferences have changed. Second, consumer income, which I just gave you earlier, right? So if your income increases or decreases, you demand more or less for certain products. Now, here you have 2 cases. One is, normal products. And I wrote direct. I told you the meaning of direct. Direct means the both variables move in the same direction. That is the meaning of direct. Indirect means opposite direction. When I said direct, and I wrote normal products. So for normal products, when your income increases, you demand more. When your income decreases, you demand less. Understand? I'll give you examples. For inferior products, the relationship is indirect. When your income increases, you are going to demand less. When your income decreases, you are going to demand more. Let me give you an example. Normal product. So, for example, if I take a normal product, let's say the what I okay, why not I take the example of inferior product first, right? And then I'll go to normal. That would be much easier to understand. So, for example, if you are if your income increases, right? So, for example, earlier, suppose you were earning $100,000 per year. Now you are earning, this is just a fictitious example. Now you are earning uh, $1 million a year. Okay. A one bedroom apartment would become inferior product for you. You are not going to buy five or six different one bedroom apartment in different areas to live, because that product would be inferior to you. You would go for big houses now. So the demand for big houses will increase. So big houses is a normal good for you because now you need more of big houses, a bigger house, right? So you probably go for a bigger house that has swimming pool and everything. But you're not going to buy small houses. That would become inferior for you. So there's no specific definition of inferior or normal good. It changes as your income changes. So maybe one product is inferior to me, but normal to you. Are you getting my point? Let me give you another example. Suppose for people in lower income group, for them, Toyota RAV4 is a normal good for them. That is, they feel that if their income increases, they are going to sell their small cars and buy a RAV4 or SUV. So they move from sedan to SUV if their income increases. So for them, the sedan is inferior and RAV4 is a normal product or superior product. That is, if their income increases, they are going to demand more SUVs and less sedan. But same SUV become inferior for those who are earning high incomes. So if their income increases, they are going to demand more BMWs or Mercedes or more expensive automobiles, and they demand less Toyota SUVs because for them, Toyota SUV or any Ford SUV or any SUV, I'm not degrading any brand. Right? This is just an example. It would become inferior for them. So it depends on your income. Okay. So one product at the same time can be inferior or normal for two different individuals with two different income levels. Okay. But the definition is when your income increases. For example, even if I don't give you the specific product, and if I tell you this, that if your income increases, okay, and if the demand, notice I did not write QD this time, I write D only because you are demanding not because of the changes in price level, but because of other factors, that is income in this case. And if the demand for product X increases, then I am 100% sure that product X is a normal good, because with normal good you have direct relationship. If I had written demand for X uh, decreases, this would have, the X would have been inferior good, right? So this is second factor or second determinant. Third is the prices of related products also impact on other products as well. And there are two examples. One is substitutes product. The relationship is direct. Complements, The relationship is indirect. I often see a student writing compliments with I. So that is a different word, compliment, when you compliment someone, right? This is with E, and you can remember as economics, right? So economics with E, so this compliment is with E. So compliments, by complementary products, I mean those products that must be consumed jointly or together. For example, bread and butter. These two products are complementary products. Each products are complementing, other product. So you have to use together. Of course, you can definitely eat butter with a spoon. I don't mind, right? But normally we people take butter and bread. By substitutes, I mean that you can substitute one product for other. You don't consume together. For example, butter and margarine. So you can use any one of these two that will serve the purpose because they are similar products. Are you getting my point? So if the price of substitutes increases, the demand for that product will also increase. Let me write here so that you know what I'm talking about. If price of, let's say, butter increases, then demand for margarine. So I'm discussing the market for margarine. I want to see what are the factors that increase the demand for margarine. First, your income. If your income increases, and if you assume margarine is a normal good, then yes, demand for margarine will increase. If price of butter increases, and I know butter and margarine are substitutes, then demand for margarine will increase. I did not write Q, although I have used price, but I have used price of another product, not margarine. If I had written price of margarine increases, then I, you know, would have written quantity demanded for margarine, and that would have decreased, not increased. So when price of margarine or butter increases, demand for margarine will also increase. Why? Because people are substituting margarine for butter. They are basically they are substituting butter for margarine, right? So they are basically demanding less butter. So the quantity demanded for butter will decrease. Why I use word quantity demanded? Because I've taken price of butter, P. So the demand is decreasing. Demand for butter is decreasing because of the price of butter. That's why I'm saying quantity demand. So quantity demand for butter decreases and people would demand more margarine. Why? Because butter is more expensive. So if you go to the Walmart and if you assume that you consider butter and margarine are substitutable, and if you see butter is more expensive than margarine, what are you going to do? You would buy margarine. So demand for margarine would increase because of the increase in the price of butter. Okay, and that's why I said direct. Why direct? Because see, both are moving in the same direction. And for complementary products, the relationship is indirect. How? Let's see this. So if price of, this time I am writing bread. So if price of, this time I am writing bread. So if price of bread increases, then the demand for margarine will decrease. Why? Because you're using both products together. So you are not going to eat margarine alone. You have to buy bread as well. So, but bread is becoming expensive. So if bread is becoming expensive, consumers might reduce their demand for margarine as well. And that you can see that when price of bread increases, demand for margarine will decrease because these two products are complementary products. Okay. Then the fourth factor or determinant is expectations of future prices, income, and availability. So if prices or incomes are expected to rise, you are going to demand more now. And that is true, believe me. So if I know that I'm going to get higher income next month, I would tend to buy more today, expecting that when I receive higher income next month, I will pay off my credit card, okay, or my bills on my credit card. So expectations have also impact on demand. Okay. Similarly, for prices as well. So if I'm expecting that the price of air conditioner will be higher next month, I might buy now in order to pay lower prices. So see, expectation has a positive role. If you are expecting prices to be higher in the future, your current demand for that product will increase. Similarly, availability. By availability, I mean if you know that there's a shortage after 3 months for this product, you might buy now. So you increase your demand, not because of the prices, not because of actual shortage. You don't know whether there'll be a shortage next month or not, but you are expecting that there will be a shortage next month, and that is why you are demanding more. And then finally, population size, income and age distribution. I'm just skipping this because I can't cover everything. So you have to go and read from your textbook that how changes in income and age distribution and changes in population size will change demand, not quantity demanded. Okay. So this is test your understanding. Okay, why not? I think it's too much for one session, right? So why not I stop here? I know that I am on this slide, that is slide number 29. So in the second part of this chapter, I will, you will, watch the second part of chapter number 2 to understand this example, and then we discuss the determinants of supply curve, and then we see how equilibrium price and quantity change when a demand curve or supply curve shifts either rightward or leftward. So thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.